Hey everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, me and Vincent LaRussa take a look back at the Kiss album Crazy Nights. Now this is an album that divides a lot of Kiss fans. Some people love it, others hate it. We take a look back, thinking about it not only from the perspective of the year 2020, but also what it was like back in 1987 to be a Kiss fan and a rock fan just in general. We'll talk about the album, the songs, the videos, the photo shoots, and basically everything that had to do with the Crazy Nights era. We'll also talk about the production on the album and debate whether or not Ron Nevison was the right choice to produce this record. We'll also debate whether or not there was another big name producer that could have done a better job with the album. We'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening on one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. Now, without further ado, let's get started with our chat and our look back on the Kiss album, Crazy Nights. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm really excited to have back with me once again my good buddy, my partner in crime, Mr. Vincent LaRussa. How you doing, buddy?
Are we committing a crime right now?
By the end of this episode, who knows? We just might.
I'm feeling mischievous today on a Sunday morning. Actually, it's Sunday afternoon now.
It is, yeah. It took us quite a while to get started here, so now it's Sunday night almost.
Yeah.
Just kidding. How's everything going with you, buddy?
It's going really well, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So I think today we wanted to try to do something a little different than we've done in the past. And we figured we'd try to take a look back at the Crazy Nights album, the Crazy Nights era, right? So as we go through this conversation, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about maybe some of our thoughts if we remember how we felt back then. And maybe we could even compare a little bit to how we feel now, right? Because I have a feeling in some cases that may be different, or maybe not. Who knows, you know?
Yeah.
As we always do before we do these things, you and I did not talk beforehand.
Right.
So for all I know, you think Crazy Nights is the best album ever in the history of all mankind. I have a feeling not, but hey, you never know, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but I thought a good place to start would be just to kind of set the mood a little bit, right? What was the music scene like in 86, 87, right? Because, maybe some people who are watching this perhaps weren't even born at that time. Who knows? Perhaps they were just young lads, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, or ladettes. Who knows? So what I did is, before we did this, I just kind of went online, just looked up so that I had my timeline right, some albums that came out in 86 and 87, just as point of reference, right? Because to compare Crazy Nights to the Black Sabbath debut album, Van Halen 1 or 2, makes no sense to me. They're different time periods, right?
I agree.
Right? So what I did is I just looked. So 86. Well, first off, the Asylum tour ended for Kiss in April of 86. And it was like a year and a half until Crazy Nights came out. It was like September of 87. So I remember, buddy, you and I, to me, that felt like an eternity until a Kiss album came out at that time, right? Do you remember that feeling?
Yeah, I remember reading in a lot of the magazines I was buying at the time, Rip and Circus and Hit Parader, and there might have been one other. There was a lot of anticipation for this record. We were even getting some song titles, and and we'll go maybe a little into that as we talk about some of the tracks. So there was definitely a lot of excitement that we both had. I remember it's kind of interesting listening to the record. I did listen to the record before we're recording this, and I was really becoming quite sentimental. It took me really back to that time and making me think, where did all the time freaking go? You know?
Right, absolutely.
As Cher once sang, if I could turn back time.
That's
if
right.
I could turn
all
back
right. We're getting performances now. Sorry. I was waiting for you to do Anticipation for me also before.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't do Carly Simon on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, if it was Monday, I would do it.
What about Van Halen? Where have all the good times gone?
Yeah, that's true.
Those are all the songs that popped in my head as you were talking. Sorry.
As people are watching the saying, see, they take too much time to get to the point. Anyway,
right.
So I was definitely becoming quite sentimental about this time period. for both of us, especially since we basically hung out 7 days a week during that time. But anyways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we were teenagers at that time. So, in 86, as I look at some of the records that came out, in 86, Kiss ended their Asylum tour. We're waiting for the next album. During that time, Poison releases Look What the Cat Dragged In. Tesla had their first album. Cinderella had their debut album. Ozzy put out The Ultimate Sin. We'll probably talk about that once or twice during this, right? Bon Jovi hit the scene big time with Slippery When Wet. David Lee Roth had Eat 'Em and Smile. Van Halen put out 5150. Two albums that to me were interesting of note was Judas Priest putting out Turbo and Iron Maiden putting out Somewhere in Time. And the reason I point out those two is because both of those bands for the first time had synthesizers on their album. And it just showed a little bit like how people are kind of dipping their toe in that water, so to speak.
Yeah.
87 comes along, no Kiss album yet, right? And we get in U2 to Joshua Tree. Def Leppard.
Straight there from the record.
Def Leppard put out Hysteria. Right? Aerosmith had their big comeback album with Permanent Vacation. Motley Crue, Girls, Girls, Girls. And then Guns N' Roses hits the scene in mid-late 87 with Appetite for Destruction. So there's an awesome amount of rock music at that time.
It was funny. I kind of got depressed listening to this record, realizing how old I am. Now I'm even more depressed hearing all those great records that came out in that time. I mean, just today's music, if I could get one of those records today.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, maybe we're showing our age or whatever, but that's a lot of good stuff there.
It is. And to me, it was interesting as I looked through this, the dynamic of you have like the Priest and Iron Maiden albums introducing synthesizers. At the same time, Motley Crue went a little bit away from the glam look, right? Theater of Pain was very glammy, and Girls, Girls, Girls is more like rugged looking and jeans and
the biker
look, right? Yeah. Exactly, the biker look. So I thought that was interesting, kind of seeing that you have Poison on one end, but on the other end you have Megadeth, Metallica putting out albums, Peace Sells, Metallica put out Masters of Puppets, right? So you have these two interesting dynamics going on to me at the same time. And then Guns N' Roses comes around in 87. They were at first a little glammy with Welcome to the Jungle, a little bit of makeup, but very instantly they got away from that. And they went a little bit more with like a grittier look to me. So it's interesting how we were like in that like middle road here where some bands are attaching themselves to the synthesizer sound that maybe didn't in the past. And other bands are getting away a little bit from the glam. So it was interesting to kind of put myself back in that mindset and say, how did Kiss react to this? And we know that Kiss waited for Ron Nevison, right? Because they wanted to have an album with Ron Nevison. And during this time, what did we get from Kiss? We didn't get new albums during that year and a half time, right? We had Gene Simmons producing Easy-O, Black and Blue, right? We had the Kiss Exposed VHS, which was exciting for Kiss fans, you know? Gene was in Wanted Dead or Alive during that time in the movie theaters. So we did have Kiss stuff, but we just didn't have new Kiss material, new Kiss songs. And like you said, we were reading about it all the time, right? I remember picking up every magazine and you'd hear about different song titles, like you said. I remember them talking about the album being called Who Dares Win. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Which I still, to this day, I like. That just sounds so clumsy. Who dares win? I don't get that.
Wins or wins?
No, win. Who dares win?
Oh.
Yeah. Clumsy.
Bad title. Good thing they didn't go with that.
Absolutely. And then another one was, if you remember, and I don't know how serious this was, Condemnation.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's right up there. Right after All Night, we go to Condemnation, really. So I'm happy they stuck with Crazy Nights as the album title, right?
Yeah.
So now we painted the picture a little bit. We got a little bit of the background of what it's like in 86, 87. Do you remember? I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you remember the first time you heard this album?
Yeah. I'm still going to get you back for that.
Do you remember the torture? Yeah, go ahead. You tell the story.
So, and correct me because you're really good at dates and time frames. I'm terrible at that. But according to what I remember, didn't we originally get this before the album came out?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Nice.
So here's my original 45. Crazy Nights, Crazy Nights, and No, No, No. So as my friend is alluding to, so we both had this 45. So I remember immediately thinking how good Crazy Crazy Nights was as a song. And I was listening to it again before, and I was just thinking, like, man, I think Brian May is right. And this is one of the greatest Kiss songs that was ever written in a way. I was like, I don't know, it was like the perfect pop song. I was listening to it. I had it cranked on my, vinyl, and I'm just thinking, like, this is a great song. I actually, listening to it again fresh, I was like, wow. Again, I would kill for Kiss to have a song like this. I mean, there are going to be people who don't think this is a great song or whatever. That's fine. But I do. So anyways.
And I agree with you. I think it's a great pop song.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it's better than, Modern Day Delilah or Say Yeah, which are good songs. But, I'm talking about of the later.
Current, right, the
current, which isn't current anymore.
Right.
So as I would, and maybe it was a Saturday night. I don't know. Maybe it was a Friday night. Like I said, we used to hang out all the time. I came by your place. And, hear Crazy Nights on the turntable. And, I'm thinking, all right, let's put on the 45. Right? And all of a sudden, I hear another song. Right? And the second song is I'll Fight Hell to Hold You.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't until the chorus.
No, you were actually silent through all of I'll Fight Hell to Hold You.
Oh, I was silent. Okay.
Yeah, and so, I remember sitting there saying, like, really? No comments right now, really?
Right. Okay, so now I remember. So then the third song.
Right, exactly.
The third song comes, and it's Bang Bang You. And the chorus comes, and now we've heard about this friggin' title over and over again.
Yep.
And I was like, what is this?
Exactly.
So let me just paint the picture of what good friends we were at the time. We would never say, ooh, Crazy Nights is at the record store. I'm going to buy one, and I'm going to get one from my buddy, too, because he would enjoy that. No. That would not happen. It would be like...
And this is actually a few days before the official release of the album, right? Somehow I got an album.
Well,
the record store had the albums in stock, and I was able to get it a few days before.
Your mom would always have that contact at...
Exactly.
I guess I can indict him now at Record Hut on 86th Street in Brooklyn.
That's right.
And she would get, a couple days earlier. So I think we both knew that it was coming out on the Tuesday. I think back then it would come out on Tuesdays.
Maybe. I don't remember.
I think that was...
I just remember torturing you. I don't remember the day of the week it was.
So this was definitely... I know it was I think it was a Friday or Saturday night. And I was like, this bastard. He has the record before me. How dare he? So, and then after, I know, I remember your brother being in the room, and he was kind of waiting for me because you clued him in, and we were kind of, you guys were laughing at me and whatever. But then I was kind of just excited now, knowing like, all right, here's the record.
Right.
I was like, where's the cover? And I'm looking at the cover.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So I guess my excitement of getting my copy was kind of deflated. And but I was, at that point I was really happy to get the record. Right. And I remember then we were in a band back then. And I remember that Tuesday it came, I believe it was a Tuesday, we had rehearsal that night, and I had gotten it earlier the day from the record store, J&R Music World. Nice. And we just brought it up. But anyways, that's my memory of that record.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're spot on. One of my great memories is reading those magazines, and we knew about songs like Crazy Nights, and we knew Bang Bang You. I think we knew No No No, maybe Reason to Live. We heard some of those titles before, so I was so looking forward to torturing you that day and having the album on. I knew as soon as you heard Bang Bang You, you'd be like instantly, because like every magazine article was like, of course, this is the best album since Destroyer. I'm going with that explanation.
They used that one.
Exactly. But definitely. But so now let's talk the album, right? So to me, the single came out, Crazy Nights, and at the time,
Crazy Nights.
That's right. Thank you for the correction. Crazy, because one crazy just isn't enough for this night,
Yeah.
And I remember at the time me liking the song, but not loving it as much as like Tears Are Falling, or even Heaven's on Fire. I remember thinking, it's good, but maybe not up there with those songs. Now these days, I actually love the song. I was so excited when Kiss brought it back on their End of the Road tour. I know they did it in 2010. I love the way the band does it now. It has a little bit of a heavier edge to it. Obviously, no keyboards. just let's talk the single at first. What
Yeah.
you were touching on that before. Looking back now, you're a big fan. Sounds like.
Huge fan.
Okay.
And you know what? I don't know if you want to talk about the production of the record. I
Yeah.
know we're probably
Yeah.
going to, talk about Ron Nevison and that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to get into that now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, let's talk
Yeah.
Ron Nevison. That's a
Yeah.
great point because I think that you can't talk this album without talking the production and Ron Nevison. So go ahead.
So the one thing I noticed, and I did this a while back, is if you put on The Ultimate Sin,
Mm-hmm.
if you put on this record, and if you put on the Heart record with all the hits,
Yeah.
I don't remember what's that record? That's These Dreams and
Yeah. So
um,
well, yeah. I actually looked up the five
Okay.
albums. The five albums Ron Nevison produced before Crazy
Okay,
Nights.
all right.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to read it off my list because I don't have it
Okay.
memorized. Right. In '84, he did "Survivor's Vital Signs," right?
Right.
Which has "I Can't Hold Back," "High on You," "The Search Is Over," right? A bunch of big hits. I think what you're referring to is '85. He did the Hot album, their big comeback album, which has "What About Love," "Never," "These Days," right? Then he did the Ozzy album, "Ultimate
see
Sin."
These Days.
These days, these dreams,
These Dreams.
not these days.
Is These Days, is that a Bon Jovi song?
Yeah, that is. Yep.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I am paying attention.
No,
Yeah.
thank- I'm testing you to make sure you're listening. These dreams, right? So it was Heart's big comeback album, right? Then Ozzy.
Was that just called Heart, or was
yeah,
that?
yeah, it was just called Heart, self-titled
Interesting.
album, right? So
Interesting.
a bunch of songs they didn't write, but put that to the side, right? And it's definitely his hand is all over that album and a bunch of hits. Ozzy then had The Ultimate Sin, which was a big album for him. It had Shot in the Dark, which did well on MTV and such. Then he went back and did another Survivor album, When Seconds Count, which they had another song on that, Is This Love? That was a big radio hit, right? And then he did another Heart album called Bad Animals, right? Which has Alone. Bad album. Which has Alone on it, right? So he had a track record here for a 5-year period that pretty much everything he touched went platinum, had big hits on it, and that appealed to Paul Stanley big time.
By the way, just because you mentioned it,
Yeah.
the Heart album with Alone,
Yeah.
maybe one of the single greatest female vocal performances
Agreed.
ever.
Agreed.
Go back and listen to that. For those out there, listen to her voice on that record in the
Yeah.
choruses.
I agree.
And after there's that, I know I'm diverting a little, but
No,
after
that's
there's
fine.
like that little bridge section and she comes in with that scream.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yep,
anyway, it gives me
yep.
chills.
No,
All right,
okay.
good. Anyway,
No, it's a
yeah.
great vocal. Just so you know, they're not the first band to record that song.
I didn't
So
know
you
that.
No, so you should check out the original version of it also. But
Who?
that I don't remember.
All right.
Irrelevant.
For those people, check out the version that we don't know what it is.
That's right.
But, there's this thing called Google. You'll figure it out.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Nevison was in big demand, which is why Stanley wanted to wait that year and a half to put out another album because he thought this is going to be the album that puts Kiss back at the top.
Right.
Right. So now, go ahead. You wanted to talk about the production?
Well, just know that Ron Nevison dates back to the 70s. He worked with
Yeah.
a lot of the great classic rock albums. I think he might have, and he was an engineer. So I believe he worked on like Zeppelin and some of those great records. So this guy, it wasn't just about him producing these records in the mid 80s.
Mhm.
This guy knew what he was doing. And one interesting thing I had heard, I think it was an interview maybe with Eddie Trunk or one of those guys where they had Nevison on, and he was talking about, working on that Heart record, that he basically brought in songwriters. They were very much opposed to having other people write songs, but the record company at the time was saying, listen, we need you to have a hit. Otherwise, that's it,
Right. Yep.
So Nevison's like, you're going to have to work with these artists or these songwriters. And a lot, if you look at the songwriting credits for that big Heart record, it's other songwriters who wrote those records. So not only was he a great producer, but he had an ear for great songwriting. And it's interesting because if you look at the Kiss record, the Crazy Nights record, it's still a lot that, the guys in Kiss wrote. I mean, there's some other writers on there.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, is there a song where it's none of the,
No, every song has a
Paul-
band member on it.
Right. So, that's one thing. Maybe just shows Kiss's power, at the time.
Absolutely.
But so Ron Nevison, What were you asking me now?
No,
Were you saying something
you wanted
specific?
to talk about
Well, oh yeah.
production
So
on the
listening
album.
to those the three records I mentioned, the Ultimate Sin, that Heart record,
Yep.
and Crazy Nights. Listen to the snare sound on it; it's almost
Okay.
identical.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
the production. I did this one night as just because I have nothing better to do, and just listen to the production is very very similar, especially that damn snare drum.
Okay.
I'm very retro. I know people say the record sounds thin. He's even said, I would love to go back and remix the record.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree, although I think it's a little harsh in its treatment, as far as the criticism.
Mm-hmm.
But it's of its time, It's like when I want to listen to something, I want to get the feeling of what it was like and what the records that were being produced at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an accurate stamp, if you look at those other records, of the sound of the records, If you listen to the Poison, Eat 'Em and Smile, the Poison, Look at the Cat, or, Eat 'Em and Smile. They all have, kind of that 80s production, some more than less,
Mm-hmm.
but I listened to it and I didn't really have any problem with it,
Right.
So
and that's why I wanted
take.
to paint the picture up front about what was going on in 86, 87, right? Because I think back then, there was the metal fans that liked Metallica and liked Megadeth and that stuff. And then there were the fans that liked, I guess what more people now consider like the hair metal, and the Poisons, the Teslas, the Cinderellas, right? And you and I think fell more on the Poison, Tesla, Cinderella side of the shop. So hearing that Kiss was going to be with Ron Nevison and hearing that they were going to put out an album like that, I think kind of excited us a little bit, right? And I think both of us loved the Exposed video that came out in earlier of 87, right? So
Wore that tape out.
That's right.
Wore that tape out.
So to me, we were excited, and as much as it was a while till the album came out, we had other things like the Exposed VHS that came out that kind of kept us, in the market of Kiss stuff. Gene was doing his movie, so we didn't mind as much as we were anxious for it, and we were like, "Come on, let's get a new album." We also, I remember being like excited, like this is gonna be it. Kiss is gonna sell 50 million albums, and everybody's gonna know why it's great to be a Kiss fan.
Right.
Yeah. So we get the first single, "Crazy Crazy Nights." I think we both like it. I think we're happy. I remember the video drove me crazy though. Damn, that video is like it's fast editing. Eric Carr and Bruce Kulick are barely seen in it, which I remember annoyed the crap out of me. Because to me, I love.
Is that the era where they had the really big Kiss logo?
Yes, exactly.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, no, I thought the logo was cool. They had done a huge logo on Asylum, also a little bit different looking, but no, I thought that was cool as well.
And that's interesting you say that because Asylum predated this record, and just to go back to this is my. As I said, my 87 copy, just the album cover itself. Thank God they went away from that Asylum look. I mean, I think it's a really cool looking cover. I think the back cover's great. I mean, I don't really need to see Paul Stanley's underwear, but I understand what that appeals to others, but I thought the packaging right off the bat was really cool, how they did the Kiss logos.
Yep.
Like another record we love.
Yep, absolutely.
And, here's the inside for those people who.
Yep, and I think that's a great band photo. I think that's one of my favorite band photos of the 80s.
I mean, you think about the look from Asylum and this.
Right.
Man, they said, we're going to get it right this time.
Absolutely. And, I'm glad you talked that and brought that up because I think the album cover is, for me, far and away my favorite 80s album cover. I think just it's the whole look of it. Like you said, it's almost like a hop back to Rock and Roll Over with the names in each of the corners, right?
Right.
I love the whole shattered glass look. The picture disc, nice, very nice. Yeah, nicely done. I forgot about the picture disc, right? So I really like the whole packaging that Stanley.
Doesn't stop there, my friend.
Oh boy, this is great.
It's a 4-track, and what's interesting, look what it says on here. Coming soon. Can you read that?
Coming soon. Kiss. Interesting. Interesting.
So, So
So but that back picture of Paul Stanley with it's holding on to his underwear. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's horrible. It was horrible then. It made me puke. It makes me puke now.
I knew some girls at the time that thought it was great. So we're being very biased here.
Of course. And in some ways, I forget which Van Halen was it Women and Children First, where there was a David Lee Roth poster inside that was just him, like,
Yeah.
but like it makes me almost like remember that, like how Van Halen was trying to appease like the women fans, like it's like the
Yeah.
same thing, but I don't need to see that at all. Please, talk, yeah,
Yeah.
from Exposed, edit her out, edit
Yeah.
out that damn picture,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah.
for the love of
You're
God.
being very biased, my friend, but I understand why.
Yeah,
You
yeah, absolutely.
You remember, Kiss has always, sold sex as a part of
Of
their
course.
image, and
Absolutely.
so.
Absolutely.
But anyways, we could proceed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I think you made your point
I
from
think I made my
your own
point.
personal standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't let me hop on this one. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you were talking about the production on the album, right? So at that time, and now looking back at it now, do you think Ron Nevison was like you said, he captures a moment in time and it has that sound? Do you think he was the right producer for the album?
Yeah.
So here, you ready for this? I
Yeah.
think it was wrong. But go ahead, you first.
Well, again, was Hart successful with that record? Absolutely. Was Ozzy successful with The Ultimate Sin?
Yeah.
Was the Survivor record that he did that had
Absolutely.
a couple little hits, right?
Absolutely.
Was this a successful record for Kiss? Did they keep moving up?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Slightly. Nowhere near what they wanted, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, but they never really ever exploded again.
Agreed. Agreed.
After even, with Lick It Up. I mean, they came back,
Right.
after Creatures and that, and they kind of really slowly went up, but,
Right.
but.
Well, here,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. So when I went back and I listened to the album again also, and there's a lot of songs in it I like. Some I think were bad selections to put on the album, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'm listening to it, and I'm like, nothing against Ron Nevison, because all those other albums he produced, I have every one of them in my collection, and I love them all, right? So it's nothing against him. But I was like, you know who I wish produced this album? Ted Templeton. And
I'm not gonna argue with that.
And I was like, you know what? I wish they modeled it a little bit closer to like Van Halen's 1984, right? So Van Halen's 1984, you have Jump, you have I'll Wait, you have keyboard songs, but then you also have like Drop Dead Legs, Panama, songs that are Hot for Teacher, songs that are certainly heavier. And I just felt like as I'm listening to that, some of these songs on Crazy Nights with that type of production, I think we got a winner. Like,
Well, look, you're talking even a 3-year period. A lot changed musically. The sound. I mean, even if you listen to Pyromania, which is 83, right?
83 or 84, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Listen to Pyromania, listen to Hysteria production.
Right.
All right? There's a difference. Even Pyromania sounds a lot rawer than Hysteria does. And again, I know I'm going to get beat up for the Ron Nevison thing. I know this. I feel like this, and like I said, even he has said he would love to remix. Of course, I would love to hear it differently. Yeah,
Right.
no doubt. But I think they were using a formula that was working at the time. Some of the songs that are on the record that were singles, I could go to, when they, Reason to Live and my feeling on that. I just think it worked. And that there are certain things where you're just looking into the sound of the record, you're not understanding or maybe not thinking about it. I don't mean to be disrespectful there, of what a producer does when a guy like Paul Stanley's doing a vocal and he sings a line a certain way and says, no, Paul, try doing it this way, or let's try putting it, so you don't know, or we don't know those things, those variables that Nevison brought to the table that may have made Crazy Nights an even better song.
Right.
Unless we heard those demos
Which
previous
I have.
to Nevison. Okay, so then you can.
Exact same damn song.
Okay, so again.
I don't mean that negative, I mean that positively.
Right. But you remember there's, 10 songs on the record?
Right, 11.
So every song, I'm sure, he didn't just sit at the control room and just push a couple of buttons
Of
to
course.
add reverb and do this.
Absolutely.
So again, Ted Templeman's a great guy, and and I would probably even say odds on favorite, it could have been a better record just because of his resume. I mean, even going back to the Doobie Brothers, which is nothing like Van Halen, So I'm not going to disagree with you, but I kind of made my points of how I think Nevison was the right producer at the time.
I never thought it before until I was listening to it just recently. And when No 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 came on, to me, that was Kiss trying to do Hot for Teacher, those kind of Van Halen songs. And when I heard that, and it just sounded so thin, the sound on the album.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a bad song. I know a lot of Kiss fans. I know Paul Stanley hates it. I'm listening to it. I'm like, this is not a bit. This is not a boomerang, right? This is a.
No, nothing is.
That's true. I'm like, this is a good. I wish it had a meatier sound to it, and that's instantly when I thought of Hot for Teacher and what that sounds like, and I'm like, Ted Templeton on this right now. This song, I think I would really like, even 30 years later. This production it's a heavier song. Gene, it's one of Gene's heavier type songs, but it's just filtered and watered down with the production, and it's a shame because I don't think it's a bad song. Actually, I actually like the song.
Think about this, and Ted Templeman produced the 1984 record and even other ones.
Yeah,
I think all the Van Halen records up to that point, right?
Up to that point, and then I even looked it up. After that, he was doing David Lee Roth's "Eat 'Em and Smile." He had done Sammy Hagar's VOA album. He had done Aerosmith's "Done What Mirrors," right? So he was in that rock world doing a bunch of good albums.
So my point was, what I was going to make was when Van Halen came out with 5150, it was Mick Jones, right? Mick Jones, a foreigner, who produced that record. Yep. Mm-hmm. One of the things I hate about that record is the drum sound and those electronic toms.
Yep.
I mean, now I listen to that, I'm like, oh my God, it's brutal. Back then, I didn't think it so much because that was the sound of its time. Mm-hmm. Thank God, all the drum sounds on this record are acoustics.
Agreed. Yes.
So he could have went even more, because even like what's his name from who produced all the Def Leppard records? Help me out.
Mutt Lange.
Mm-hmm. Pyromania. It's a drum machine.
Yep.
It's not Gallen playing those drums. Maybe he programmed. That a lot of people were starting to use electronic drums because they wanted that Mutt Lange sound.
Right.
But Neverson stuck to the acoustic drums, which again, you never know.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of my feeling about Neverson. But I don't disagree that I would be curious. Ted Templeman, that was a good choice of all the producers out there.
Well, and I thought of that because of the type of albums he was doing with Van Halen, and they had that mix of it. Van Halen '84 still had the keyboard songs, but still had the heavy rockers, and you don't hear 19. I know you said it's a few years earlier, rightly so, but you don't hear that and think, gee, this sounds like dated and it sounds like a certain era. It still, to me, stands up. And I even looked at, and then we get off the Ted Templeton thing. I even looked at, what was Ted Templeton doing around 87, 88, and he produced an album for the Bullet Boys and Honeymoon Suite. I think was early 88, the Honeymoon Suite album. So he could have been had, is my guess, because I have to think if Kiss went knocking on his door, he wouldn't have said, I got this new band, the Bullet Boys. I got to work on their album. I don't want to work with. Now, maybe he hates Kiss. I don't know, but that would have been my choice for the Crazy Night album, to have Ted Templeton instead of Ron Neverson. So that's that. Yeah. So talking some of the songs then, right? So we spoke No, No, No. We spoke Crazy Nights, right? What are some of the other songs on the album that you either really like or you say, damn, I hate this song?
Well, didn't I have Outside Hell to Hold You on my on my underrated?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
So again, I'll stand by my feeling on that song. I think I really like that song. I think Neverson has said it. I think Reason to Live could have been a huge hit at that time. I'm not quite sure what the hell happened there.
I agree.
Because the record after that was Hot in the Shade, right?
Yep.
And they had Forever, and another ballad type of thing. Production different, but hello.
I like that you came prepared with every prop.
Yeah, I got to say, this was about, and this was another thing that's interesting about this record. This was, I guess, the peak of Paul Stanley's vocal range.
Agreed.
And again, why did that happen? Because Kiss was trying to compete with everybody else.
Absolutely.
I think the reason why you have a song like No, 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 and Bruce Kulick starts off, I know you made the Hot for Teacher reference. I look at it also as like, all right, let's show that we got a guitar god too. Listen to what this guy can do. I remember first listening to that, being like, wow, what song ever started like this? A Kiss song.
Yep.
It was totally different. I loved the song at the time. I loved it more then than I do now. I'll say that. I agree with you. I think the chorus is the weakest part of the song, in my opinion. But, I think Reason to Live could have been a huge hit, but I was saying about the vocal range. And even on, I'll Fight Hell to Hold You, you hear like where Paul is in that chorus. I think we touched upon it. It's on the precipice. To me, it's like, where is this annoying or is this okay still?
Right.
But then, you go to a song like My Way, which I personally liked at the time. Hearing that chorus, I remember one of our good friends making fun of the record and just saying about like, I mean, this is way too high. I can't listen to this. And he was starting to listen to the Megadeths and Metallica at the time, and he was this was a little too poppy for him. And me and you were like, nah, this is, I think we still thought it was a great record.
Yeah, but I want to be fair, and I said at the top of this, let's not just talk about it in the year 2020, but let's also try to put ourselves back in '87 and what we thought, right? And honestly, I didn't remember this, but I keep everything from my childhood. So I have, and you know this, Vin, I have
hopefully not underwear.
Not on the good. No, not on the. So, but I have all of my mixed tapes from the 70s, from the 80s still, right? And
he's all flustered now. He doesn't even know his errors.
I don't even know my errors anymore. All right, this show's over now. No,
thank you.
So I have all of my mixtapes from the 80s and the 90s still, right?
Yeah.
And I actually found I had like a 2-tape series of like all my favorite Kiss songs that I did in '88. And I looked through it, and lo and behold, like there's 3 or 4 songs from Crazy Nights album on there, and one of them is My Way. I'm like, wow, I guess in '88 I really liked that song.
Yeah, I remember that.
Then I found another set. It was a 3-tape set this time of all my favorite Kiss songs as of 1993. And My Way was still on that, even after like getting through Revenge and all of that. So I'm like, holy crap, I guess back then I really, really liked this song. I don't remember that, but I want to just put it out there and be honest and fair. I listen to it now and I cringe. I'm like, oh God, no, this is not good. In fact, at one point I'm going to talk about, to me, what the better album would have been, and it would not have included this. But I have to be fair. Apparently back then, for a 5-6 year period, I thought this was one of the better Kiss songs.
Yeah.
No,
and I remember you feeling that way. And I think one of the things we didn't touch upon, and I remember when we were listening to it at your house, first hearing Hell or High Water, and saying, wow, Gene's not singing, exactly. And I was like, whoa, that kind of took me by surprise. It's like, again, I think that might have been like a Nevison thing, saying, all right, you're just going to sing, you're not going to do your Gene thing, because I think at the time, if I remember correctly, we'd be like, oh, here comes a Gene song.
Right.
He didn't have a great reputation of that mid 80s, from, I guess, from Animalize, Asylum, those records. We were kind of really down on a lot of the songs that he put out.
Right. Well, he was off doing his movies, and his focus clearly wasn't on Kiss.
Yeah, and so a song on here, Good Girl Gone Bad. Again, very kind of similar vocal approach. I think we thought, I remember thinking at the time, wow, this is pretty good. This is not, we weren't like, oh, off the bat. Right. And, just looking at all the other songs on here, When Your Walls Come Down and Turn on the Night and Thief in the Night, Hell or High Water, I don't really look at this record and say, like some of the other records, wow, that's a bad song. I mean, I know how you feel about My Way now, but I think overall, considering, this as a whole, it's, one of Kiss's stronger records, Again, to my point of Nevison, I don't know how much he takes credit in that, because usually there is a song selection. I think, as you know, there are a couple of songs that we're not including on here that were demo. You might want to mention that.
So I'll address the songs that are on the album in a moment, but it's a perfect segue. So one of the things I did is I said, to me, as I look back, and again, it's the whole, like you said, Nevison, I'm sure, had a hand in selecting the songs, although we know that at the time, Paul and Gene had this ego thing where they have like a roughly equal amount of songs on the album. Right. But to me, I went back and I looked at this, and there's songs that were left on the cutting room floor that Nevison thought weren't good enough for the album. So I put together 10 songs.
You know that to be fact?
Yes. Yep. They've openly said that. I've heard Bruce say it. I've heard Paul say it. Right. Okay. So to me, I put down 10 songs that I thought would make probably the best Kiss album of the 80s, right? And they're all written for the Crazy Nights album, right? So start off with Crazy, Crazy Nights. Instead of I'll Fight Hell to Hold You, number 2 song I would have put Sword and Stone, I think is excellent. If you guys are watching this, haven't heard it, there's 2 demo versions. There's one with keyboards, one without keyboards. I'd say check out the one without keyboards. Incredible. Mm-hmm. Then I would put No, No, No on there, right? Because I think it's a good song. Just beef up some of that production. Then the 4th song could have been Hide Your Heart, right? How they left that song off this album, I don't know. And then I would have closed side A with Hella High Water. So you have 2 Gene songs, 3 Paul songs, and I think you have 5 excellent songs. I think that's a real solid side A, right? Side B, to me, When You Walls Come Down, I like that song, right? Mm-hmm. I hate the damn Hey Kitty Kitties. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. But the song itself is good. Reason to Live, I think, is excellent also. I think that should, like you said before, it should have been a big hit. Mm-hmm. I would have loved during this time, all the talk back then, if you remember, is Eric Carr going to have a vocal on an album? Right? You heard it during Asylum. You heard it during Crazy Nights. He finally got one on Hot in the Shade. But he had a couple of songs he wrote during this time. Dial L for Love, or the one that I really love is Just Can't Wait. If you haven't heard that, check it out on his Rockology CD. It has a very much...
Or vinyl.
Or vinyl, that's right, or the vinyl. To me, Just Can't Wait has a very, like, You Give Love a Bad Name type of feel. He should have had, to me, his first vocal on this album. Gene wasn't around that much. Is the perfect opportunity to let Eric sing a song. Huge missed opportunity. And he had a couple of songs that were worthy of talking about it. You didn't mention before, and I think, to me, we have to talk about the song, Turn on the Night. That, so to me, is one of the best 80s, because I know it's there. Thank you. It's another good band photos over there. That should have been, hold that up again. I wish those were the photos on the back of the album instead of what we got instead.
Yeah.
Those are good.
But band... actually, Paul has no bottom in the full picture.
Well, I can't see it, so I don't care.
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Okay.
And you want to see something interesting?
What's that?
Can you see that?
Is that Who Dares Win?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it because I remember he got that from a patch on a jacket that he had.
Yeah.
So when you held it up, I'm like, I bet you it says that on there.
And it's Who Dare Wins, by the way, not
Oh,
win.
Really? Okay.
I think it was always wins. I when you said it earlier, I thought, but maybe.
I stand corrected then.
Hella High Water is the flip side, by the way, people.
Yeah.
And For the Reason to Live is Thief in the Night.
And I was going to say, to me, I would still close the album with Thief in the Night. I know that Wendy O. Williams recorded the song years ago before Kiss did, but I think it's still a good song.
Gene Simmons produced that record.
Gene Simmons produced the record. So
we know where that came from.
To me, if I look at an album like that includes Sword and Stone and Hide Your Heart and a song from Eric Carr, this had the potential to be an incredible album.
So that means you remove Good Girl Gone Bad.
Yeah, I removed Good Girl.
Hella High Water.
No, I put Hella High Water on there.
Oh.
I removed, let me see.
Bang Bang You.
Bang
we
Bang.
Didn't we didn't even talk about that song. Yeah. I mean, we mentioned it, but...
Yeah, so I'll stop with Bang Bang You. To me, I remember, like you said earlier, reading all the magazines.
Yeah.
This is going to be the big song. I remember when I first heard it, I loved the little tip of the hat to Love Gun in there. But Jesus Christ, the song was bad. Oh,
it's interesting that the hype sticker didn't have that as
it doesn't? Okay, yeah.
No. Mm-hmm. It had the 3 songs that were singles.
Singles, right.
Which kind of,
Yeah. Yeah, it just... so, yeah, when you listen to Bang Bang You, what's your thoughts? And they did it the entire tour and concert.
Well, again, I listened to it earlier. Ooh, oh, oh, oh. It's actually got a pretty cool verse. The 1, 2, the whole pre-chorus. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem. It's the chorus that is absolute crap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I think if they had a different chorus and a different title, I don't know, it's just a stupid title. Mm-hmm. So I think they had it like 75% pretty good. It's that 25% and it's the big payoff that really is terrible.
Right.
And again, I think we touched upon it because this made our other list of worst
10 worst songs.
He makes the Love Gun reference. It's like, all right, come on, use that, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to be like, ooh, Love Gun, ooh. It's like, no. I just think it's by far the worst song on the record, and that's not usual for a Paul song. Right. Usually it's a Gene song, but yeah,
Yes.
Edit that one out.
Yeah,
Edit it out.
Exactly. So to me,
that's
I would edit that out, and the fact that Sword and Stone and Hide Your Heart didn't make the album, but Bang Bang You did. It goes back to my Neverson comments before. What if he had any hands in that? I'd love to say to him.
We don't know.
What?
Again, we don't know that. Paul might have felt very strong about that song.
Maybe.
Who wrote that? Was that? I don't have the records actually on the. Do you know? Oh wait.
Stanley. Yeah, I think it's on there. I know it's Stanley. Is it Adam Mitchell? I don't think.
Oh,
so.
Desmond Child.
Desmond
All
Child,
right, so
right.
let's think about that for a second.
Uh-huh.
Desmond was like gold and platinum back then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm sure they were thinking
Platinum means platinum for those who don't understand our language.
And what's interesting, okay, so he did have also a writing credit on Reason to Live, which I didn't even remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. That's the only other song that Desmond had a writing credit. So they were probably thinking at the time, based on the Bon Jovi success.
Mm-hmm.
Was Permanent Vacation before this record?
It was a couple of months before, I think.
Okay, so I'm not sure if it had really started to,
Mm-hmm.
So they might have, because let's face facts, they were preparing for this record before that record came out. So, but they probably wanted a Desmond Child on here, because he was a hit maker,
Right,
and that's one of those that I could use profanity, something that rhymes with hit. Was more like a maker,
Okay,
so,
right, right.
So, that's
To me, I think if Crazy Nights would have come out a year, Kiss sometimes likes to, especially Paul, likes to chase a trend, and I feel like Crazy Nights,
which he wasn't. Yeah, that it's funny how Kiss was doing that kind of in the mid to late '80s.
Yep, absolutely. So to me,
and I'll make another reference to something else. Like
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. Because I know I always.
No, that's fine.
Because I remember the first time, skipping to the next record, hearing Hot in the Shade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and hearing that intro, like whoa, what's going on with this?
Right.
And immediately I think I started thinking about Cinderella had a Long Cold Winter.
Yep.
And there was a lot of that. I love the record anyways. We could talk about that another day. Thinking like, oh, now Kiss is trying to do this bluesy thing, and then when the song comes in, it's nothing like a blues tune. Right. Kind of like a little tease.
Right.
But anyways, to your point, Kiss was following trends.
Yeah, they were following trends, and I felt like this album was maybe 9 months too late. Right. So go back to what I was saying at the top. Right. So in '86, when you had albums like Look What the Cat Dragged In, you had Slippery When Wet coming out. Even Judas Priest putting out Turbo. Iron Maiden with Somewhere in Time. Like, I just feel like during that time period, had Crazy Nights come out, I think it would have been a bigger hit, right? Because late '87, once Guns N' Roses hit, things started to shift a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. It definitely started to shift, and I feel like if I look back in late '87 when Crazy Nights came out, and I have Crazy Nights and I have Appetite for Destruction, which one is more fans going to listen to? Now, forget the fact that Appetite for Destruction has better songs all around, right? But even just the production and all of that, I think Crazy Nights was just a few months too late.
You got to remember something, though, with Appetite for Destruction, when that record came down, it really changed the whole music industry and what bands were trying to do,
Yeah.
So it's, that's a tough one to compare it against because really nobody was doing what Guns N' Roses did at that time, all the guitar players were playing all the pointy headstock guitars, Kramers, the Charvels, and then Slash comes out with a Les Paul. You didn't see a lot of those rock gods playing those Les Paul. Right, and then all of a sudden I remember the industry, everybody was playing Les Paul. So that really, that record was just incredible of what it did to the music scene and what record companies were trying to put out from that point forward,
Absolutely.
But I get your point. I just know, and I remember loving this record at the time. I listened to this back and forth on the subway systems of Brooklyn, millions of times. I listened to this record. My cousin at the time, who I was close with, lived on the same block. I remember him listening to this record a lot. You listened to this record a lot. We were very favorable about this record at the time. Yeah. We weren't thinking, oh, who's this Ron Nevison? This record's not produced good.
No, that's fair.
We're looking back at it now because of what's been done after that.
Right.
So,
and I want to be fair. In '88, I think if I have my timeline right, I think Bon Jovi put out the New Jersey album, right? Poison had Open Up and Say Ah. Warrant was still a year away, right? So there was
Right.
still pop rockish type music that was popular.
Yeah.
But I always felt back then, and I still do to a large degree now, Kiss was chasing the trends and they weren't being leaders. And it just, like, when I listen to the album, it feels like that. And I feel like maybe a different producer and some of those other songs on the album could have been stand up on its own during that time period, still fit in with their, with the Poisons and the Rats and all of those guys, but still been a solid, great album that 30 years later you still want to listen to. And I'm not sure Crazy Nights is, for me, an album through and through that I want to listen to.
Well, just remember, it's easier to make these decisions now when we have all this data. I still think for the time, again, you made a good point about the Ted Templeman thing is, if he was available. And who knows who was available at the time. We don't know. We know that Paul, that he wanted Nevison. And I think for really, really good reason. If he were to make a case at the time, if the record companies or the record company was saying, well, why do you want this guy? And he could say, well, listen to that Heart record, listen to what he's done with Ozzy, listen to what he did with Survivor. The guy had a really, really good resume. And also, I kind of forgot this. When I look at the record, it said produced and engineered by Nevison. So he did both parts. A lot of times you just see the producer, and then there's always a separate engineer. Bob Rock was the engineer on Slippery When Wet, but Bruce Fairbairn, however you pronounce it, was the producer. Bob Rock went to become this huge producer because of Metallica, really. He was also an engineer on Dr. Feelgood. And I read where Tommy Lee was like, I want that sound that, Eric Carr got on Creatures of the Night. I want that drum sound,
Right.
But I'll still stick by what I think, Kiss made the right decision. And I still think that this record really does hold up. Right. You have to, if you're going to listen to it with those ears, those sensitive ears of like, oh, it's thinly produced, you kind of have to try to look past that and just listen to the songs.
Right.
I don't think the song production is so bad that it's not going to hold up.
Right. And to that point, I want to
turn the bass knob up on your receiver. That's right. My recommendation. You can do that. It will work.
You are allowed.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
To that point, I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. Turn on the Night to me is one of the best. I put that in my top 20 Kiss songs. Period. All eras. Right.
Another one where it's like, how did this not become a hit?
Yeah, I absolutely.
And videos for it.
That. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, well, to me, again, those videos. But they missed the mark with those videos. But I think it's an incredible song. Like I said,
Reason to Live had. I'm sorry, but Reason to Live had a little bit of the cut scenes with the girl.
That's true. Yeah,
they did try to create something more than just a concert live type of thing.
That is true. That's true. And when I listened back to the CD, which I hadn't listened to beginning to end in years, when Reason to Live came on, at first I was like, but then as I listened to it, I'm like, this is a well-written song. This is a good song. This really, I think, just a little bit better production for me. I would love the song, but I actually was like, to your point, this should have been a hit. In 87, this should have been a hit on the radio. I'm sure some of it was just the stigma of having the Kiss name attached to it. But you said it before, Forever became a hit a few years later. Yeah. But, I listened to that. I'm like, this was relevant in 87. And it actually sounded better to me now than I remembered.
I have a great memory of Reason to Live.
What's that?
I just want to quickly say. So I was over by my aunt and uncle's house, and the song was on MTV. And I remember I was upstairs and I came down to listen to it. And my uncle, after the song goes, and he was not a Kiss fan by any stretch. He goes, this was a really good song.
Right.
Wow, that was really good. And I'm thinking like, see?
Right.
This could be a hit. If the average non-Kiss fan, who he's probably listened to Johnny Mathis after that, you know what I mean, thinks like, so yeah. Right. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, and when I go back to some of the songs that Nevison had produced for other bands, whether it was Alone, some of the Survivor stuff, right? I'm like, this fits in perfectly, and he had that magic touch back then in making these types of songs be big hits, and I'm surprised, and I was very surprised that I actually liked it more after not hearing it for a few years. I'm like, this is actually not a bad song at all. Not at all. So let's just talk the tour for a few minutes, right? So, I know we saw them a couple of times. I think we saw them at the Nassau Coliseum in January. We sat all the way straight back from the stage. And then we saw him at the Ritz in August of '88, the club show.
You
right?
sure that was the Coliseum and not the Garden?
No, it's definitely not the Garden. The Garden
Okay.
was '86 on the Asylum tour, and then '90 on the Hot in the Shade tour.
Okay,
So
maybe that's what I was thinking.
This was the
Okay.
Nassau Coliseum,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember for me, the thing I didn't like about the Crazy Nights tour was two things. Number one, the set list was like 80 minutes long only, so it was the shortest Kiss show they ever did. I remember being disappointed with that, and I hated that they opened up with Love Gun. To me, that is not an opening of a show tour. I think you mentioned before, the big logo was really cool. There was a lot of songs from the new album, which, as much as I've kind of been like lukewarm to the album, I actually love that they did that. Even if they were going to do like No 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 and Bang Bang You, I think it's good when a band is promoting their new album, and they, in the '80s they usually did 2 or 3 songs from the new album, but this one they really they tried to push pretty heavy, So what memories do you have of the tour?
Besides the tour book that was like the size of my back window of my car. Yeah, no, I remember we would always want some sort of merchandise, and we were excited, and literally this tour book was huge, and me and you and our friends were always like worried about it getting wrinkled, dented, and you don't want to hold this thing, so we put it down on the seat, and we were trying, So I just remember being like overwhelmed by this tour book. Again, my memories of that, we didn't walk out of the concert thinking like, oh my God, like that was disappointment. I don't even remember the time thing. Again, you're a great historian of these things, and you had gone to a lot more Kiss shows than me at that time. But I was just, I was excited because I loved the record back then. To what you said too, they did a bunch of songs from the record, which I thought was cool. Bruce Kulick at the keyboard on "Reason to Live" was cool. We had never seen that before.
True.
Something to mention.
Absolutely.
Bruce with the BK shirt that we all that we loved. That was
That's
cool.
Right. Yeah.
Other than that, you touched upon the Ritz thing, which was kind of like a totally different thing, but.
Absolutely.
I have good memories of that tour from those shows.
Yeah, I know. I remember not being happy that it was an 80-minute show, but I also remember that back in the '80s, this, I used to audio record every concert I've been to, and the one, for whatever reason, I chose not to was the Crazy Nights tour, because we had gone, me, you, and like 3 or 4 other friends, and I wanted to just be able to, I'll say, rock out and have a great time that night. And I remember our friend
we
Kenny,
were cool.
Yeah, I was very cool. I remember our friend Kenny came with us. It was the first concert he'd gone to with us. And I was jumping and singing and I'll say dancing, and not really dance, but you know what I mean? Jumping all over the place. And Kenny being like, wow, because usually I was much more subdued, when we were just hanging out. I was the subdued friend, right? And at a concert, I just became like a nut that night. And Kenny was like, holy crap, I've never seen this side of Mike. So as much as I could look back and say, gee, I wish they played longer or whatever, that night at that show, I remember just going completely bonkers and crazy the whole night.
Yeah. No, I remember very fondly. We did have a great, and maybe that was the other thing. We did go, a bunch of us. I think even my cousin went to that show with us too. Yeah. And then the Ritz thing was a totally different experience.
Absolutely.
Good and bad.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think we touched upon that in our other previous when we talked about our favorite
Top
concerts.
10 concerts. Yep. Exactly.
So
yeah.
I'll have to go into that again. Watch that episode.
That's right. Good idea. Good idea. It's really
Plug.
good. That's right. Very good.
Yeah.
And then this whole era maybe comes to a close when they release the Crazy Nights VHS tape. Right. So
damn, I have that.
Oh, you weren't prepared. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
So to me, we think about where the era started, and I said during that '87 time period we had Exposed, which we loved. Right. It had the classic concert footage. It had all the old videos. It had the newer videos. And then this comes out, and I think it's 12 minutes long.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just the 3 videos. There's not even a slice of an interview from the era. There's nothing but the 3 videos. It's 12 minutes, done and over. I remember being very disappointed in that at that time.
That I do too. And again, I don't know how much control Kiss had over that. The record company might have been like, listen, we just want to put out this thing. We got the videos available. Boom.
Right.
They're out doing whatever. We don't have time to wait. We need this out now.
Right.
So again, I don't know how much control they had over that stuff.
Right.
But you're right. We were, you go from Kiss Exposed, that tape. We're like, like what's next? Maybe the bonus thing. You're like, you know,
Exactly.
this is it, you know.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
Especially in my case, I had recorded the videos off of MTV at the time. It was almost like this videotape. There was no need for it in my
yeah,
collection. And I think for the longest time, I didn't even have it. Eventually, I bought it just to complete the collection.
yeah,
But I think for the longest time, I didn't even have it.
yeah.
So,
Which is interesting. I mean, you pointed this out before from that picture disc that says "Coming soon, the Kiss exposed video. Can you afford to miss it?" So, how does this single of Crazy Nights predate that?
that's a great question. I don't know. Now,
Are
maybe
you positive about the timeline on the Kiss
you're
exposed?
gonna have to look it up. Look it up right now while we're chatting. Keep me honest here. You got the
Let me see.
computer over there.
Let me see.
I thought Exposed was in the summer of '87. So could it have been that the single? Because I know the Crazy Nights single was released like a month or so earlier, and I think that is, if I'm not mistaken, an import picture.
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
So perhaps Exposed, like in the UK, where I think that comes from, wasn't released at the same time.
It was released, drumroll, May 18th, 1987.
All right. Okay, I can breathe again.
I never doubted your because you're really good at that. I
No,
always say
look,
that.
I make mistakes. I made one on your Facebook page yesterday.
Oh, I enjoyed that so much.
I know you did.
Yeah, that was glorious.
I forgot Talk released that also in
Yeah.
'84, so whatever. Whatever. No, look, I make mistakes, but I thought that was '87 in between the two albums, so I'm glad I was right about that.
Let's see if I could get actually a release date on this record,
Yeah, I think it's like,
and where it was released.
yeah, it's what, Crazy Nights you talking? What a single?
This picture disc that I have
Okay.
here.
Yeah, I don't know. 'Cause again, I think that was released in the UK, so
Let's see. Picture disc. Yes, this is the UK.
right. Yeah, you see, sometimes
so-
the memory is still good.
So was the record released in the UK later on?
No, what I'm thinking, and this is pure guess, the
Or
exposed,
the videotape
the
didn't go there?
exposed video was released later in the UK than it was in the US. That's my guess.
Hmm.
Right, because there's no way that single was not released in May of '87. Crazy, Crazy Nights. There's no way that single was released in May.
Let's see. From the Kiss album, Crazy Nights. I don't know when did the single come out?
I thought the single came out in August of '87. Like, I'm doing this off the top of my head. You could Google it, right? So it'll put me
Yeah.
on the spot. I'm gonna guess August 17th of '88. I don't even know what day of the week that is, but I'm gonna say right around that time period.
Yeah.
So let's see how good or bad I am.
Let me see if I could get a date on this.
Yeah, just look up the Crazy Crazy Nights single, what the release date was.
The pressure.
As people start logging off, they've lost all
Yeah,
interest.
everybody's like, all right, these guys are. I don't know if I could get an exact date on here for the single. I see 87. Does it actually have a date when it was released? Let me check one more thing.
Yeah.
Crazy Nights.
I'm gonna
Single
definitely. I'm sticking with my
release date.
August of '87.
Well, the album was released August 18th, 1987. Is that true?
No, the album was September of '87.
All right, so then that's the date then.
August 18th.
Yes, September 21st,
I was off by one
1987.
friggin' day. How do you like that? How do you
Damn
like
good.
that?
I give you credit.
I was off by one day.
And actually,
That's why I get so
September 21st
disappointed when I get that talk thing wrong. God damn it.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm thinking there.
I don't know what I was thinking either.
But so to what I said earlier about albums being released on a Tuesday, it was actually released on a Monday.
Yeah,
So maybe it was Mondays.
I know. I thought the Tuesday thing started like '89 or something like that. It was a later '80 thing.
August 18th, 1987, it was
All right.
released.
All right, there you have it. And so I'll tell you why now. I thought I got that single right around my birthday.
That was a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Maybe they did singles on Tuesdays.
Maybe, who knows? But yeah, I thought I remembered getting the single right around my birthday. My birthday's mid-August, so that's why I went with August 17th. But yeah, so anyway, I don't know, we kind of went way off path over here, but definitely I think that Crazy Nights video, after getting that exposed video, is a huge letdown. The tour, in hindsight, is probably one of their weaker tours that they've ever done. Although, like we said, we both had fun that night. So putting ourselves in that moment in 1987, or I think our concert was January of 88, we had a good time. You know, they had done for a few shows When Your Walls Come Down, which I wish they kept in concert. I would have liked to see that live. There's a bootleg or two with that in there. You know, Bruce has done Turn on the Night on his shows on the cruise, and I think it sounds incredible live. I don't know how Kiss did not perform that in concert on that tour. I don't know what the hell they were thinking, you know?
I mean, that's one of the things I would have, like, if I have my list of questions to ask Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, and I would love to ask the question to Paul, what was going on at that time that the record company, were they not backing you with some of these records? Like, what was stopping these songs from becoming... Now, Crazy Crazy Nights was from what I understand, overseas was a big hit, right?
I think it was their biggest hit in the UK, yeah.
Right, so obviously did well. Yeah. But what was the other things, like, was it just they still had the stigma? You know, Kiss always had that friggin' stigma.
Well, Kiss had sued the record label in like 83 or 84, and I don't remember all those details, right?
Yeah.
But you know that had to play a part, you know? So I'm sure that's part
But they also were doing well when Lick It Up came because they did the makeup and, you know, Lick It Up was a successful video, and you would know better if like Heaven's on Fire was successful.
Yeah.
You know, I think they did relatively well playing videos at the time. You know,
yeah, and you know, yeah, oh, absolutely. And MTV had, I think it was Dial MTV was what it was called at the time. And Reason to Live was #1 on Dial MTV for I forget how long. And I think if I remember this right, MTV actually changed the rules for Dial MTV because of Reason to Live. Reason to Live was a #1 song. I forget if it was like 15, 20 days straight. And they said, like, after a certain number of days, I'll make up the number 20. After 20 days, it can no longer be a #1 song. Like, there was a max. They capped it. And that was because of Reason to Live. So Kiss was definitely translating with the MTV crowd. And that song, Reason to Live, did very good on MTV. But it just never translated into pop radio for whatever reason.
And I just remember I don't know if you felt the same way, kind of always rooting for Kiss to have that hit song on the radio.
Absolutely.
You know? Because I remember finally when they did get that hit with Forever, I was like, oh, finally. And it went to, I think, #7, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so. Yep, I think so.
Like wow. You felt vindicated as a Kiss fan because we always got so much abuse, you know.
Absolutely.
Kiss
Absolutely.
fan.
Absolutely.
Look at you people now.
That's right. That is right. But so I wish they would have done Turn on the Night in concert back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that to me would have been great. But, you know, so I can look back at the era fondly. I know at times I've been a little critical in this conversation, right? And that's the 2020 view. But I could also go back to 87, 88, 89 and say, you know, obviously, like I said before, My Way was on my mixtapes through all those years, right? I think definitely at that time, liked the album, was excited about it. I think it hasn't aged maybe as well as some of the other 80s albums, but the songs were there. And when I think of the other songs like Sword and Stone and Hide Your Heart that could have been on this album, this could have been an A+ Kiss album that really could have like rivaled, I'll say, Lick It Up and Revenge in terms of like non-makeup albums. So it falls a little flat, and I do wish they had a different producer on it. But, you know, overall, it's a nice little snapshot of what Kiss was like in the late 80s, I guess.
Yeah. I still will stand by everything I said, even after our discussion. Not that I'm really necessarily disagreeing with you, but I was very happy when I listened to it. And I listened to it top to bottom. One of the things I will say, though, I didn't touch upon this. The guitar solo that Bruce does on Crazy Night, woo! Oh, it's awesome, that solo.
Like that
last note he plays, that little climb up, incredible guitar solo.
Yeah.
What starts to happen with his soloing, and I love Bruce, it's after a while the solos start to sound very repetitive throughout the record to me.
Okay.
I got a little solo fatigued.
Okay.
If there's such a thing.
Okay.
And again, I know what they were trying to do. You know what I mean? You know, you know, so that's one of the things I wanted to touch upon. But although Reason to Live, again, great solo.
Agreed.
Great solo, man. I'm glad he wasn't like, It's like listen to Vinnie Vincent on Back on the Streets.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I know there's a demo version of there out there where he's just playing this nice like melodic thing.
Yep.
And Vinny's a great player.
Right.
But for that, I want,
a melodic type of song.
I want that thing like Great White doing Save Your Love. Listen to that.
Right.
People
Absolutely.
Great White fans, listen to that song and listen to that guitar solo.
It's a great song. Mm-hmm.
Great song, great guitar solo.
Agreed.
That's what I want.
Agreed.
But I wanted to touch upon that, about the guitar solo. There's really, really good on that. But then there's a lot of the same. But, so that's my little feeling about that.
Okay. So if we were going to go and say that we wanted to listen to some albums from that 86, 87, 88 era, pretend you're going to make a mixtape today of 86 to 88. Do you include songs from the Crazy Nights album? And if so, which ones?
No. Crazy Nights. Crazy Nights.
Crazy Nights.
Reason to Live. Turn on the Night. Absolutely.
So the singles.
100%.
You think the singles hit the mark?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, there are some others like I had also said about, I'll Fight Hell to Hold You, and, maybe When Your Wall Comes Down would be like B-level songs. I don't know if they would make the tape. If you're competing with like, Living on a Prayer and, whatever else, some monster songs at the time, they would definitely not make the cut,
Right. Right. So,
but those three songs,
So
absolutely.
in 87, Aerosmith had a hit with Angel. I think that was 87, right? Yeah. So you listen to Angel, you listen to Reason to Live. Are they comparable songs for you?
Yeah, the thing that always bothered me about Angel, I said it back then, I was like, all right, this is Barbara O'Reilly slow. It's like that same sort of chord thing, which has been used a zillion times. But that was the first thing I heard when I heard that. I was like, well, this is Barbara O'Reilly.
Okay, I never picked up on that.
Yeah, people listen to it. People! Does it, so your question says, do I like it better? Or?
Yeah, so if you're going to listen to Angel or Reason to Live, right? Because Angel was a huge hit. So we said before how Reason to Live didn't become a hit. Angel was huge.
Kissing my boys, man. I'm going to go with Kiss just based on principle. Now, I would say what song I think is better. Angels is a tremendous song.
I love that song. I know Aerosmith fans hate it. I love it.
Yeah, it's a tremendous song.
I think it's a Desmond Child song also. If I remember right.
It is. It is. It's a hard. That's hard. And they're both great songs and kind of very different in a ways. I don't think. If Angel has keyboards on, it's very little bit. Right. Very little. Reason to Live clearly has keyboards on it. Different sounding song.
So as
maybe I'll go with Reason to Live on the principle that should have been a damn hit. You know what I mean? Angel was a hit. Okay.
As a full album, Permanent Vacation or Crazy Nights?
That's hard because I would really need to go back and listen to Permanent Vacation.
I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm just
again,
some of these things.
What were the big hits they had?
Dude Looks Like a Lady. Ragdoll is on that, right? Angel, which you spoke about.
Yeah, I think those are the three, right?
Yeah.
The big.
Yeah, I think Hangman Jory was on that album also, if I'm right. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't really answer that one. People put it in the comments.
There you go.
Put it in the comments for that one. I think you may have an opinion on it.
Yeah. You know what? I don't mind the 80s Aerosmith at all. I know a lot of people do. I don't mind the 80s Aerosmith, and I love the Permanent Vacation album. I love the title track. I think that song Permanent Vacation is great. I love that song.
I love the Pump record. That's 89, I think, right?
Yeah, I think that's 89.
Tremendous record. I know I love Pump more than I like Permanent Vacation.
Right.
I could tell you that right off the bat, and I don't have to go back and look through those two records.
I can understand that. Yeah. No. So
is Pump better than Hot in the Shade? Is Hot in the Shade 89? I'm jumping all over, right?
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Pump is better than Hot in the Shade. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Sure. No. What I'm just trying to establish as we're closing up here is just looking back now and those albums that came out all during that time period. So we're saying, especially you're saying it, you think Crazy Nights is good. It's a good moment in time. And I'm trying not to compare it to like Appetite for Destruction or Hysteria, like classics, right? Or Slippery When Wet. I mean, that's not fair. Those are classic albums, right? But if I'm trying to compare it to some of the albums that I think
Groundbreaking records for those artists
the
too.
groundbreaking, absolutely. And you know, to me, Aerosmith was a band from the '70s, came back in the '80s, had success, and that's why I said let me just get your thoughts in comparing that. I'm not even going to compare Crazy Nights to like Look What the Cat Dragged In, because that's a debut album. Kiss is now on their whatever 14th, 15th album. It's not fair, but I always find that Aerosmith Permanent Vacation to Crazy Nights comparable because they were within like a year of each other.
Well, let me ask you this question: do you think Crazy Nights is an step up from Asylum?
Yes, because I happen to think Asylum's probably the worst album in the catalog.
And let me ask you this question:
Yeah.
Who Wants to Be Lonely and Tears Are Falling? Are there better songs on Crazy Nights than those two?
Maybe Turn on the Night.
Right. So
Maybe.
that's the thing about Asylum. That's that weird thing because they
Yes.
got those two friggin' gems on that.
They do.
And there are a couple others. Was that King on the Mountain, which is
Right.
I think is still really good.
Okay.
Maybe one other. I can't think right now, but so that's how I always like to look at it. It's like, wow, Tears Are Falling, Who Wants to Be Lonely, tremendous songs, you know.
Right.
And I tend to agree with you. You know, probably if I had to compare it to Crazy Nights, I probably would still choose those two.
Yeah, I choose those two songs, but I choose as an album Crazy Nights the album over Asylum.
I guess so. I think how we could kind of put this in a nice little package.
Yeah.
I think, considering that to be the case, you know, did Kiss do the right thing? Was it a successful record? Well, maybe singles-wise it wasn't, and I don't blame Kiss for that. I don't think Kiss was like, yeah, kind of sort of released that Reason to Live song. We don't really like it, but you know, if you want to put it out as a 45 or as a single, I think, you know, it was successful. I don't know what the overall numbers were as far as units sold.
I know it sold over 1 million, but I don't know exactly what it was.
But just also remember, metal and that hair metal was going up and up and up, and at one point it was like the most popular genre of music, you know. And I think this was a good contribution to that time, and I think it's still, again, I don't look at this record and say, oh my God, you know, there's a Boomerang on here. I mean, there is a Bang Bang You on here, so there's a bang.
There is
they
a
both
Bang
start
Bang
with
You.
B's, but yeah, I think it's a solid record.
So I think, you know, as we close this, then what I look for from people who watch this in the comments, you know, you look back on this album, 30 plus years later. What do you think of this album today? What did you think of it back then? Like, do you remember when you first got this album? What was your initial thoughts? What do you think of the production, right? We went back and forth on Nevison and different options of producing, etc. You know, what do you think of the production on the album? What do you think of the singles of the album? I'm giving people lots of things to talk about here, right? And, you know, I love your question. How do you think it compared going from Asylum to Crazy Nights? You know, so I love to see people comment on all of those things. What were your favorite songs on the album? You know, I happen to love Turn on the Night. What do people think, you know, their favorite songs are? We definitely like to hear your comments, your thoughts. You know, we know that this album divides Kiss fans, and there's a lot of debate about it. So I'd love to hear what people say. And
just very quickly, because we were kind of talking about Asylum.
Yeah.
Look a step ahead and look at Hot in the Shade.
Yeah.
Right? I know when that record first came out, you and I sat in my basement, listened to every song, and we're like, another good one.
Yeah.
Another good one. You know, I don't think we even at the time gave Boomerang a boo. You know, I mean, I think we were like, you know, whatever. I don't remember what we said. I could tell you right off the bat without going back and listening to that record, I don't have the same fuzzy feeling about that record as I do about Crazy Nights. And I think Crazy Nights is a better record than Hot in the Shade, even though Hot in the Shade has more songs. I know at the time I was like, wow, what do they have? It's like 72 minutes of music or whatever it was. I think even the hype sticker said something like that.
Right,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
and I think part of that is because of the production. So, you know, I was a little critical on some of the production, but I think the production on Crazy Nights really puts you back into 87, 88, in our case, being teenagers, right? Enjoying going to all the concerts, Kiss or otherwise at that time. So I think you listen to the album and it really puts you back in that spot, whereas some of those other Kiss albums, they sound dated, but it doesn't ooze 80s.
Yeah, and I guess that definitely plays into my feeling. Like I said, when I first put the record on, I was just going back in memory is how I was feeling about that time. And it really made me, in ways, feel good, but then feel bad, you know?
Right.
But I don't think I would have that same feeling with Hot in the Shade. There's just something, to me, special about this record and maybe that time in our lives or in my life, whatever. So.
Yeah. No, I could definitely relate to that, and I have to say I fully agree with you. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why subconsciously we chose to do the look back on this album as opposed to any of the others.
Well, you asked me, right?
Yeah,
Didn't you ask me? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's a good spot to close. I look forward to seeing people's comments on this, and it's always a pleasure, my friend. Always a joy to have these conversations, and I think
we'll think about what the next one's going to be.
That's right.
We'll talk about.
That sounds great.
And again, people could put suggestions in.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Yeah, another thing people do: put suggestions if you want to hear us chat about a look back on another album, Kiss or otherwise. I'm open to even doing another album that's not Kiss.
That's a good idea. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe the next thing won't be something Kiss related.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be Permanent Vacation. Who knows?
I like that idea. So, all right. On that note, everybody, thanks for watching. If you're on my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button below. And also head on over to Facebook, follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. Everything. All the music. All the bands. It's complete. Until that, thanks a lot, Vin, for joining me again today. It's been a pleasure. And see everybody. Talk to everybody soon. Later.
Take care. Later.
Alrighty, there you have it. There are our thoughts on the Kiss album, Crazy Nights. We'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts, and your feedback. Do you like this album? Do you hate the album? Do you love the album? What do you think? Do you think they put the right songs on the album? What about the production? Do you think they had the right producer? What did you think of my thoughts about Ted Templeton? We'd love to hear all your comments and look forward to them, good or bad. While you're here, hit that subscribe button below on my YouTube channel. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Until next time, see you later.